Right, what have we got here? Alright, today we are looking at the Convoy C8 Plus. Now, I make mention of the plus aspect of that name because, especially in the flashlight world, a lot of people will be familiar with the C8, which has been an excellent flashlight. It's been around for years, and it's the throwier version of the Convoy series. If you want a less throwy version, you would go for something like the S2 Plus. Just as an example, it's got a short little bowl there. It's not much of a thrower, whereas this is supposed to be a thrower. There is a bigger version, such as I think it's the L2 or the L6, which is a much bigger thing, but you need bigger batteries and all sorts of things. So we're going to stick to this for this review. So for this specific review, here are the specs. So this is going to be using the XPL High LED. Now, High just stands for, you can check all these specs yourself. If you go to the Cree website, they're very helpful. They're the manufacturers of the LEDs for this specific model. And HI just stands for high intensity. So it's generally a little bit more voltage and things like that, so you get more of an output. And they're estimating the output when you buy this as 1,100 lumens, although I suspect it may be a little lower, because sometimes with the Chinese stuff, they slightly overemphasize the lumens. If you remember my Skill Hunt review, it was something like 1,200 lumens, and it wasn't. It was about 900. But anyway, let's have a look at this item. So pretty hefty, pretty heavy. Now, this is supposedly in sand color, but if you ask other people, it's brown oak, so it depends where you buy it. Wow, I like that. It seems to have an abundance of heat sink. So obviously, when I'm talking about heat sink, I'm talking about these fins here. So there you go, Convoy C8 Plus. So like I say, the C8's been around for many, many years, and it's an excellent flashlight. So a bit of fluff on there. So it's a tail clicker type. Now, the reason I like tail clickers is because if you compare that to something like, this is a bad example because you can't electronically lock this out, but imagine this has no electronic lockout. So if this is in your pocket, you can quite easily press the button by accident, or in your kit bag, and then you spend all day banging around and running up and down hills and jumping into ditches, and then by the time you get to camp and you're allowed to relax, your flashlight's run out of charge because it's been on all day, because it's been knocked. So that's one of the benefits of a tail clicker, because by virtue of the design, it means that it can't be turned on. Yes, it could theoretically be turned on if this gap's big enough and something jags it, but I think that's seated low enough, and you need to press low enough in so that's past parallel there before it gets to the click. So that's an absolutely brilliant design, and because it has this, it should, yeah, it does, it stands on its tail. So if you need it to stand on its tail on a table or whatever, that's a brilliant design feature. I tell you what, I'm really impressed with this knurling. I'll try and get a close up with that. It's got like a diamond knurling there. Now, the one complaint I normally have with Convoys is, and I'll show you this, here's a Convoy S2, which I love, but look, that to me, that knurling there is rubbish. It doesn't really provide you with any grip unless you hold on really tight. It's almost as if they put that there, they've finished the design and went, right, it's fine, let's send it to manufacturer, and someone said, hang on, we need to put knurling on because that's what you do with flashlights, and they've just put on a random knurling which doesn't really give you a lot of grip. It's hardly like a barbell in a weights gym, whereas that's actually almost sharp. If you listen, when I try to move, it's almost taking my skin off. I like that. That's a good design. It actually works. So a big improvement there in comparison to the S2 Plus there. Excellent. And I like all this heat sink. And I'll tell you why I like that. Do you know what it's time for? It's time for a drone. So let's move this box out of the way. Okay, now generally with a flashlight, there's your casing, and you have your gubbins inside here, and heat needs to escape. Now, surface area is one of the biggest predictors of how fast you can get rid of temperature. So how do you increase surface area? Well, instead of having a flat piece of metal, you have a corrugated piece of metal. If you imagine that's a piece of string and you pull it, you've managed to increase surface area in this bracket of space. So the more surface area, the more heat can be dissipated into the air which surrounds that area. So I appreciate the fact that, I realise a lot of this is to do with design and aesthetics, but they've done a great job. And you see these cutouts? there for a purpose. They're anti-roll cutouts, so if you put it down, it's not roll. Especially if you put it on a bonnet and you're outside busy with machinery and it rolls off. And where's the bloody flashlight gone? That's happened to me before. So I appreciate this anti-roll mechanism here. But I really like these heat sinks. It's almost reminiscent of the BLF Q8. If you look at all the heat sinks there, I mean, to be fair, the biggest factor which allows this to get rid of heat is the size of this section. It's huge, absolutely huge. But those fins are good. The only better implementation of heat sinks I can think apart from that is the Skill Hunt. Look at that. Excellent heat sink there. I'm a big fan of that, which I went through on the review of that one. So it's nice to see that, and it looks good, feels good, stops it rolling, jobs are good. And there's the reflector. Now, I always like to check the reflectors for defects. That's pretty good. It's pretty damn good. There's not a lot of defects I can spot in there. There's maybe a few little ones, but I think that's just bits on the glass. So yeah, it's a big reflector. Now, what's a reflector for? It's time for another drawing. So moving on. Okay, you have three basic mechanisms for getting the light out of your flashlight. Okay, so here's your flashlight, and then there's your PCB, printed circuit board, and your LED, and you want light to travel in this direction. Now, depending on the application and what you're doing and your design thoughts on it, how you're going to do that. So the most basic way to do it is to have a smooth reflector. So the LED light comes out, and anything else is bounced around and ends up coming out, and you end up with spot and spill. So I'll show you what spot and spill are, using this as an example, because I haven't even got a battery in here yet. So if I shine this S2 here, you'll see two zones. Okay, so this zone here is spot, so that's direct light coming from the LED and hitting the surface. From here to here is what we'll call spill. Now, spill is superfluous light which comes out in a secondary manner. Okay, so I'll just turn that off. So you get a beam pattern with a reflector like that. It hits the wall and you get a spot, and then this is your spill, and they're two distinct zones. So for example, I shall show you by putting in a battery. And for this, I'm going to use a Samsung 30Q, which is an 18650, which is the type of battery this uses. So positive down for this. Screw that in. Okay, so there we go. So you can see this is a smooth reflector. Now you see the zones. It's very easy to see the two zones regardless of height, unless I pull it way, way away. So you can see them there. Now compare that to the S2. I'll turn it down slightly to match. See how it's not so defined? That central area is not so defined. There's a bit of a transition zone. Now why would that be? So I'll turn that off. Well, the reason for that is your second option of a reflector is a orange peel reflector. So it has bumps and aberrations. In other words, it's not perfectly smooth. So you get your main beam, but then it transitions the spill. So instead of hitting the wall like this, it hits it more like this. You get a transition between the spot and the spill. Your other option, which I'm not going to go into in great detail, is a TIR reflector. This is a TIR reflector. So in fact, it's not even a reflector. It should be called a lens. It should be called a TIR lens, because there is no reflector. It means you don't have to use up a lot of space. And if you watch, see how the transition zone's taken to the extreme. There is no, even at that height, there's no transition zone. It gives an excellent spread. So you probably think, what's the point in those three reflectors? Well, this is for close-up work, where you don't want any transition zones. This, I would argue, is one of the best bets for mid-range. So up close, you're going to have to hold it right back there to get, because otherwise, if you're up close, you see, it's obscuring detail, isn't it? So you've got to pull back until it's no longer obscuring detail, you see. Whereas with TIR, that's not really an issue. Okay, so turn that off. And obviously with this, it's really going to obscure detail. See how everything's obscured? even when I pull back, it's obscured. So what I'm trying to suggest here is a smooth reflector is better for throw, in other words, getting that light out to a distance. An orange peel reflector is better for a little bit of throw but some close-up work, whereas a TIR lens is better for close-up work. So without me rabbiting on anymore and doing any more silly drawings, let's get on with this flashlight. So let's take it to bits. Start from the starter. Right, so let's have a look at this. Well, like I say, it feels pretty hefty. So essentially what you're getting is you're getting an 18650 tube here, similar to the S2. Then on top, it's got a huge smooth reflector, which is going to force this light out. Do you know what? It's pretty well made. That looks to me almost like a... I don't think it is. It's well, it's close to a square type screw there. It makes a little bit of noise, as you can hear, which generally, no, not too much. It's not lubed, but the O-ring's pretty good. The whole point of that O-ring is to stop water egress if you drop this in water, but that's pretty good. Now let's check this spring out. Pretty thick, decent business in there, not much muck, and that's a decent spring. You want a decent spring because what happens with cheap springs is over time you get sag, and especially when you've got high currents going through them, but that's pretty good, so I'm happy with that. I just want to see what they've got down here. That looks pretty clean, but let me just see what spring they've got. Yeah, it's exactly the same. It feels exactly the same as that. Yeah, so decent springs, top and bottom. So let's get this in here and check out some of the modes. There's a few different modes you can do, but I'm going to keep it simple. Okay, so because this is a tail clicker, which I like, let's go through the different modes. So first mode, if I can find it, is moonlight. The whole point of moonlight is puts out a very low amount of light, saves battery, allows you to look at stuff, and it doesn't ruin night vision. Night vision is when your eyes become accustomed to the light level. Everything's fine. You can, as long as there's a bit of light around, you can still see what's going on. But the problem is, if you've got using a lot of light and it gets in your face, you ruin that night vision, and then you're unable to carry out certain tasks without a flashlight, which is annoying. So that's I like to see that mode. So that's moonlight. That's it. Now I'm going to guesstimate these levels because they don't tell you. So I would reckon that's between 1 and 2 lumens. Okay. Then the next one is low. I'm going to guesstimate that at about 10 to 12 lumens. Pretty decent. You can see there's plenty of spill here, even at that range. And then you've got medium, probably about, looks about 300-ish. And then you've got high, which is about 700. And then there should be a turbo. There you go, that's turbo. So that's maximum output there. So you can see that's pretty bright. That's obscuring everything. That's very bright. Turbo's about 1,000. They're saying 1,100. I'm guessing it's probably 1,000. They're probably using the luminous flux value, and the reason I bring that up is because, again, you're free to do this yourself. If you go to Cree's website, which I generally do when I'm looking into these things, they don't even quote you able to get 1,100 out of that, the XPL high LED. I think their figures, if you go to the Cree's website, the XPL high, the highest you can get out of it is 1,095 or something like that. So I don't know where they're getting that figure of 1,100 from. So even then, that's a theoretical maximum. So I'm guessing that's about 1,000, which is fine. Okay, so 1,000, and then the next mode is strobe, which I'll put down because I know it annoys some people. So there's your strobe. And then you also have another strobe. So if you click it again, you have like a beacon strobe. So you see it's on, flash, on, flash, on, flash. And then you have like a 4 flash, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then off. 1, 2. I'm not sure what that's for. I don't know why they didn't just put in an SOS, but okay, that's fair enough. It's technically a beacon mode, and then back off again. Now, if you notice, whatever mode I'm in, I'll show you. I'll just leave that for 5 seconds. If I click that again, it does have memory mode, so it'll remember what you used. Unfortunately, out of the box, it won't have that. So you need to activate that. So I'm going to show you how to activate that through the secret menu. The secret menu is 10 presses. Okay, so turn it on, and then let's move this lanyard out the way, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then watch. Well, of course I didn't do it properly. So 1, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it. Then it comes on and flickers. Then it comes on and flickers again. Now press the button. That's it. So now this should, yeah, that's memory off. So that's how you do memory. So it's 10 clicks and then it'll on and flicker. That takes you into a secret menu. Ignore that. On and flicker for a second time. Press it during the flicker and it activates memory mode. I don't know why you wouldn't have memory mode out of the box, so that's a strange UI decision, but I can't complain, and I'm certainly not going to mark them down because the option is there if you want it. The reason I'm avoiding the other option, which is go to the secret menu and click at the first stutter, is because it's way overcomplicated. It's a little bit like the UI on the Q8. If you want to go into it, you can. I still can't work out half the stuff on this, and I'm pretty good on flashlights, so I want to stay away from there because I want to try and streamline this. And the last review I did, it took me so long to do the flashlight that my phone ran out of memory. So I want to try and cut down on things and streamline things these days. Okay, so I'm very impressed. You've got the granularity of the UI if you want it by going through that secret memory. I don't know why you wouldn't have memory mode on by default, but it's nice to see that you can turn it on and off. Well done, Convoy. I love the design. I love the paint finish. It's not quite as nice as the paint finish on the S2. The S2, when you get the S2, it almost has a powdery finish, which I love. To be fair, this doesn't really need it because you've got the excellent knurling, and as you can hear, there's only battery rattle if you hit it. So there's no battery rattle when you move the unit, but a little when you hit it, which isn't an issue. That's generally more of an issue with headlamps if you're running and things like that, but that doesn't bother me. I'm pretty impressed. I've checked out some of the beam shots. I'll be showing you some of them now. I was very impressed. If you want a thrower and you want it cheap, this is an excellent option. I'm highly impressed with Convoy at this price point to be able to put out something which feels rock solid. I mean, it really does. I love the heatsink design. It seems to have an anti-reflective coating in there. You know, it's got everything you could need. For the money, you'd be mad not to get one. Yes, there are more powerful flashlights out there and there are better throwers, but do you really want something that big? I would argue that this is great for in the car or walking the dog because you can get a distance. Obviously, if you're going to be using some, you could use something like this, but you're not going to get the distance, even though this is a very capable flashlight and they both have a similar output. Now, the next question is, there'll be people watching this who are thinking, well, I've already got a C8, should I get the C8 Plus? Let's face facts, what are you getting differently? If you check the specs very carefully, there's very little difference. The only main difference I can see is you get this updated design, which I really like, excellent. Yeah, you get a trendy colour. This is sand, if you ask some people, and other suppliers call it oak grey. And you're getting a slightly different LED emitter. The LED emitter in the old one is the XML2, which is a fine, you know, it's an excellent emitter, nothing wrong with that. With a maximum theoretical output, according to Cree, is 1052 lumens off the top of my head. So you're thinking, well, what about the C8? Even though they claim 1100, I'm guessing it's about 1000, if that. Because even Cree themselves, who make the emitter in this, will tell you that the XBL HI, and HI just stands for high intensity, will put out a theoretical maximum of 1095 lumens. So very, very little difference. If you've got a C8, I wouldn't bother unless you really like this design. Sell the old one and get this, or have two if you're not putting up a collection. The only other thing is obviously there's a cheap lanyard, but it's pointless going into that with any great detail. It is cheap, but it's generally what you get with the Convoy. So marks out of 10. Let's have a think. It's got all the modes you need. Brilliant thrower. If you want a thrower, I'm going to give this, for the price, 8, because dead cheap, feels rock solid, does the job, throws very well. It's got a nice big bowl there, as I call them, to throw that out. Throws better than some of the others. Yeah, it's not as good as some of the really big ones like the L series, but or the Giga thrower. But I mean, who wants to spend $200 on a flashlight? So very capable. 8 out of 10. I would give it more if memory mode was on standard. I don't know why you wouldn't do that, but it is easy flexible and a better lanyard. I'll probably give it a bit more. There's no clip, but judging by it, you should be able to get some sort of clip to go in here. But again, not a deal killer. 8 out of 10, well worth the money. Highly recommend getting one. Right, enough of me wobbling on. It's time to get out and show you some beam shots.